So what should we be looking at, week 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, so the first three standards.
Okay, so on week 1, let's observe and note class routines and mentor instruction style. Become familiar with curriculum and materials. Work with small groups of students as recommended by the mentor or teacher. Work with students on an individual basis as recommended by the mentor teacher. Develop lesson plans for and teach one or more lessons as recommended by the mentor teacher. Video at least one of the lessons taught to submit for standard 1. Begin to develop lesson plans for classes to be taught in week 2. Should we go ahead and talk about week 1?
Yeah, so there's the standards, or there's what the sequencing.
Standard 1, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. In standard 1, learner development, the candidate understands how students grow and develop, recognizing that patterns of learning and development vary individually within and across the cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical areas, and designs and implements developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experiences. So does the candidate use knowledge about student growth and development to design and implement developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experiences? So for this one, I am going to give a 4.
Oh boy.
Because when I look at the 4, it says candidate creates and implements developmentally appropriate instruction that takes into account individual student strengths and interests. So when I think about where we started to where we were this week, you did an awesome job. You took the time to come in, you were looking for manipulatives to use, you came in with an anchor chart. We talked about videos, and the first time we looked at videos, you didn't really pay attention to what the strategy was. And then after we talked about it, you made sure to go back and find the appropriate strategy, know when to stop the video, to give the appropriate content. So I think those are all things that fall into that category.
Okay.
The instructional strategies clearly reflect his or her understanding of how students construct knowledge, acquire skills, and develop disciplined thinking processes to promote student learning. Again, continuing on with the models, we made sure the kids were getting the models and drawing them appropriately. So I feel like you did a really good job with standard 1. This continued for standard 1. It is, I think. Next it says, oh, this is for the final evaluation, not for this one. Okay. All right, and then standard 2. The candidate uses understanding of individual differences, diverse cultures, and communities to ensure inclusive learning environments that enable each student to meet high standards. Does the candidate create a positive classroom climate by making the students feel valued and show respect for each other? And that was perfect. You tackled that right away when you came in and got the lesson started. You made sure to set guidelines for the class. And you did a couple things that I was really impressed with. I'll grab my other notebook.
Sure.
1 second. So I remember the other time we talked about sometimes you just do things that work well and you don't even realize you're doing them. And I think that was some of the stuff that I noticed this time. Like before, when you gave them the independent assignment and they had to solve it, you made sure you told them to make sure you stay at your seats and I'll come around. Last time, that was an area where we struggled. This time, you had them, and so no one got up when they finished. You moved around, checked everybody's work, you looked at every child, and that was perfect. That's a great way to set the expectation and hold them to it. Nobody got up to follow you around the room. And they were all engaged, they were working, it was awesome. So I think that you did an awesome job with that one as well. So let's see what the outstanding is for standard 2. The candidate values students and promotes positive and respectful interactions among students to help them to respect each other. I love that when you called on Brenda, she didn't want to answer. And you waited her out. Instead of going on to somebody else, and she was waiting, she was hoping that you were going to call on somebody else, but eventually she did it. And when we do that, I think that it builds kids up because they want to just be that little quiet wallflower, but we've got to help them to gain that confidence. And that's, to me, that's a good way to help students do that. And it wasn't, you weren't mean about it, it was perfect the way you did it. You just waited patiently. And eventually she read it, and once she started reading, she was fine. So I think that was great. You talked to them about the expectations right at the beginning, and I think that they paid attention to that, and they kept it going throughout the whole lesson. So I feel like you got a 4 on that one as well. Awesome job.
Thanks. For
standard 3, says the candidate works with others to create environments that support individual and collaborative learning, and that encourage positive social interaction, active engagement, and learning and self-motivation. So when I look at this one, it says 4 would be candidate collaborates with the student and families to build a safe, positive learning environment. So I think you did a really, really good job of setting the tone for the class on the learning environment. What I would like for you to work on is turn and talk more.
Okay.
So there was a couple times where they went straight to the work, and I'll go through it specifically.
Okay.
But it would have been great if they would have encouraged a little more student discourse.
Okay.
Turn and talk time, because again, that encourages that learning environment. And sometimes they don't know the answer. So like a strategy that I always use is phone a friend. But then that whoever you call, you've got to be listening, because you're going to have to repeat what it is as well.
That they say. All right. So then would you go back and say, okay, what did they just say?
Yep.
Okay.
So if I call on Kamani and he doesn't know the answer, Kamani can phone a friend. And if Angel answers for him, I'm going to go back to say, Kamani, what did Angel say? What was the answer to that question? Because it makes them know I'm not off the hook. Because somebody else answered, I still have to do the work.
Yep.
And in most cases, it does keep them